Hey everyone, it's Zack Beck. It has been a wild time in personal finance over the last year. We have seen intense stories ranging from GameStop shooting up to the moon before crashing quickly down. We've seen cryptocurrencies volatility all over the market. We've seen NFTs sell for nearly $69 million. We've seen Tesla stock go up to 800 and then come falling down. And we've seen SPACs go by the wayside, unlimited spending from the federal government, and historically low interest rates all taking place in the midst of a pandemic where online fueled speculation on places like Reddit are causing people to dump their life savings into things they might not even understand, such as Dogecoin. So as you can see, we have kind of hit a moment right now where there is a lot going on in personal finance and it's very confusing and very volatile. So what I want to do in this video is break down in detail what is happening, how you and I can navigate the terrain so we come out on the other side ahead to personally achieve our long-term financial goals. So let's take our time, dive into the details, and jump into it right now. As previously mentioned, there's a lot going on in personal finance space that is causing people to ask the question, have we reached peak absurdity when it comes to finance and investing here in the United States? And I would say the answer to that question is possibly, because one of the things we can look at is that history doesn't necessarily repeat itself, but it often rhymes. And when we look back to the 1920s, there was the original Ponzi scheme where a gentleman actually went and he sold people on the concept that he would give them a 50% return in 90 days. And what he did is he would take the original investors' money and actually take that money from the new investors and give it to the original investors to give them their overall worth. And that type of Ponzi scheme is not necessarily what I'm calling all these other things that are happening in society right now, but we are seeing a lot of things transpiring specifically in the crypto space that are causing people to wonder what is actually going on. So what I want to encourage you with are a few things. Let's take a look at each story individually and understand what is going on with each. Let's start with GameStop. I made an entire video about this a number of months ago, and basically what that story was is we had a specific stock, GameStop, that was being shorted by a large institutional investment called Melvin Capital. And what they did is they believed that stock price was going to go down, so therefore they bet against the overall stock. This was then discovered on Reddit, and then the people on Reddit caused people to begin investing in GameStop to push the price to the moon. Unfortunately, because some of the institutional surroundings associated with Robinhood and some of the problems we saw transpire with technology, the price didn't continue to go up, it actually came crashing back down. So the people who were hurt were the people who heard it on the news and then poured their money into it. And now right now GameStop is continuing to move forward, but it's nowhere near the highs that it had reached a number of months ago. This caused a lot of people to become burned and not want to become investors moving forward. Then we can look at cryptocurrencies. We have seen so much volatility in the crypto space, everything ranging from Bitcoin going up to nearly $70,000, coming back to $30,000, Dogecoin being almost worth $1, but then coming back to worth 20 to 30 cents, and everything in between with scam coins that are coming online like SafeMoon and other things that are happening where people are supposedly making money really quick and becoming millionaires overnight. Then we have NFTs, which are basically these non-fungible tokens, basically the equivalent of a certificate of authenticity for a piece of art that could be sold for nearly $69 million, like WeBull's initial artwork. This is causing people to actually go and burn original pieces of art, take pictures of those before they're burned, so that they create that scarcity supply. That happened recently with a gentleman calling himself Burnt Banksy, who actually took an original Banksy piece of art, burnt it, but had an original picture taken and sold that for $380,000. And then when we look at Tesla, the overall stock has been up, but now it's starting to come back down. Then we saw special purpose acquisition companies who are promising to go and merge with companies in the future. Those so-called SPACs became very prevalent over the last year, but now they're gone by the wayside because they're almost the equivalent of promising that you're going to give some people additional information long-term, but not letting them know what your plan is until after they've invested. So if any of these things have a rhyming scheme to what has happened over the last year, it's probably because we're seeing a lot of things happening right before our eyes, and people back in the day couldn't tell the difference between what was a scam, what was a solid investment, and we're looking at similar things right now. I want to be very clear. I'm not calling cryptocurrencies a scam. I'm not calling NFTs or special purpose acquisition companies or GameStop or any of these things a scam or a Ponzi scheme or anything to that extent. What I will say is that when you're looking at this through a very sober lens as a potential investor, someone who wants to provide finances for your family, who wants to be able to achieve your goals, maybe home ownership, being able to purchase a car, being able to go on a vacation, just being able to live your life, it can be so overwhelming when you're seeing the headlines and the sensationalism and all the tweets going on in society, and it's really difficult to know what to do. So what I want to do right now is take a moment for us to step back, take a deep breath, and kind of understand what can we do to help us move forward to achieve our goals, because ultimately that is personally what I care about. I do not care about what you're going to do as it relates to cryptocurrency, NFTs, or anything like that. If you can make money in those areas, wonderful. I think that's great. But I will share with you what I believe is the simple and peaceful path to wealth, so that way the way you can actually get there is not going to be so jarring, it's not going to cause you as much stress, and hopefully it actually allows you to achieve your goal so we can live a fulfilled life that has a positive impact in our society. So now that I got my diatribe out of the way, I just want to share with you what I personally believe to be the peaceful path towards wealth. And this is not anything that's really unique to myself. It's not an original idea or anything to that extent. I don't want to say that I'm sort of investing savant or that I know everything. And anything that I'm sharing with you is not investing advice. I'm not a certified financial planner. I am just a guy on YouTube, but someone who's taken a lot of time to try and live my life with balance and moderation, and make sure that I can move forward and achieve my goals, to provide for my family, to do the things necessary that are bringing me peace and value in life, so that I can be more fulfilled, and that way I can go out in society and make a difference. So from that standpoint alone, a few things that I personally believe can help you build wealth over time are the following. I talk about this frequently on the channel, but I believe it's important to reiterate this. Do everything you can to cut back and scale back your spending. This is very important, because if you and I can really get it right and understand where we want to allocate our resources, that gives us the overall framework to operate with when we actually allocate our money into areas that mean the most and can have the most bang for the buck. When you think about it, there's a gentleman who says this following. He says that it's very important for you to spend extravagantly on the things that you love, but cut mercilessly on the things that you don't. This is from a gentleman by the name of Ramit Sethi. I find that to be very fruitful information, because for myself, I got really caught up with buying things that I didn't necessarily need, and that caused money to go into areas that weren't bringing long-term value. So what I found is that my wife and I have cut back in the areas where we don't want to spend money on, but then we spend money on things that we do value and that bring value to our lives, such as traveling, going out to nice dinners, enjoying one another, and all those different things. But those experiences are what we really care about. We don't care about like how fancy our car is or how fancy our house is or anything like that. Just having that balanced approach. On that note, you want to try and save money where you can. So if you're cutting spending in certain areas and saving money in other areas, you can do a really effective job at having more money to be able to invest towards your future. And a good thing you can look at is all of your subscriptions that you might currently have, especially over the last year with people being shut in because of the pandemic. You might have been spending money more on certain subscriptions online, be it Netflix, Hulu, or all these different streaming services. You might have had meals delivered, you might be doing other things, but now that things are open back up again, the pandemic is subsiding, you might not necessarily need all of those subscriptions. Maybe cut back in those areas where you're able to. Maybe if you have a really expensive car right now that has a monthly payment, perhaps you could sell that and buy a car instead, so you don't have monthly payments moving forward. Just try and think strategically about what you can do to scale back your money, so that way you're not constantly living paycheck to paycheck. Then, what you want to do is you want to avoid lifestyle inflation. This is such an easy thing to get sucked into. It's almost the equivalent of what you've heard the story of the frog in boiling water, who doesn't know it's getting hot until it's too late. Same thing with lifestyle inflation. What it is basically where you and I purchase things because we're seeing other people do the same. We want to have the same car, the same house, the same type of clothing, the same type of technology. We do all these things so that we can signal to society that we are successful. And I just want to let you know, that is something that some people might find value in, and if you do find value in that, great. I don't want to take that away from you. But your intrinsic value is what is going on inside of your heart, how you're acting out in society, the type of impact you're having in other people's lives, the type of things you're creating to make a difference in this world. So from my standpoint alone, I believe it's important to avoid lifestyle inflation, because it doesn't necessarily bring you value, but it also does cost you a lot of money on top of that. Furthermore, what you want to do is you want to avoid debt. Outside of a mortgage for a home that's on a fixed low interest rate, you really don't want to carry any debt. Be it a car payment, be it appliances for technology, really don't finance anything, because as you're spending money on things that you don't have money for, you're going to have a negative net worth. It's also going to lower your credit score. It's going to cause you to have issues maybe getting the type of loan you need to actually be able to purchase a home in the future. So there's a lot of negatives associated with debt. So try and scale your way out of that. One of the most effective ways that you can get out of that is by utilizing the debt snowball method. This is actually from Dave Ramsey. He's a very cool guy and someone who I personally follow a lot when it comes to his financial advice, and I think you'd find it very helpful as well. Then, what you want to do to be able to get through this process, now that you have your financial structure in order, is to be able to look at how you can actually begin investing your money. And that's what I want to talk about next. One of the ways that you can have a peaceful approach towards your investment strategy is if you tap the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Go ahead and do that if you wouldn't mind. It would actually help push this video. Other people might need to hear it and help them make well and wise informed decisions for themselves moving forward. So if you come to the place where you've cut back on spending, you're saving money in different areas, you're avoiding lifestyle inflation, you've wiped out your debt, now you're in a position to actually begin investing your money. Not on just the recent fad that you're hearing on Reddit or what you're reading on CNBC about GameStop or Bitcoin or people becoming millionaires overnight. Those are all things that could potentially happen, but when you look at the likely percentage of you actually being able to achieve that, it's very similar to gambling, similar to going investing into like a lottery ticket or doing other things where you're speculating and putting your money more at risk. So it's obviously a little bit safer and more secure if you take a different tack. And what I like to do is invest specifically into index funds. And what index funds are basically a structure of indexes where you're basically investing into the total stock market to select companies that generally have a proven historical track record where they're going to return anywhere between 5 to 7%, maybe as high as 8%. When you adjust for inflation and you have your dividends reinvested. I like to do this because it's very passive, it's very seamless, and allows me to have more peace of mind knowing that even if the market has a bit of volatility, which it will, I'm not concerned because I know that over time, I will then have the money needed to be able to retire with dignity, to have money to be able to give to my kids, to be able to provide for my family, and to be able to achieve my long-term goals with more traveling, more experiences, and things along those lines. And that's personally how it works for myself. You might have different goals that are more immediate. You might want to be able to make it quick, and if you can, great. But I believe the way you can do that is by what you're bringing out into society, and if you're producing things that people want to buy, if you're being able to generate more income for yourself, investing is one vehicle, but it's more speculative when you're going into areas that you might not fully understand. So that's why I like to go into things I do understand. I'm not against NFTs, I'm not against Bitcoin, I'm not against those other things. I have invested into all of those things that we talked about previously, but on a much smaller percentage in comparison to the larger amount that I'm actually investing into index funds. If you want to go that route, Vanguard is great, but you need a $50,000 minimum to go in there. So what I like to do is I actually invest into index funds or ETFs, exchange traded funds, through what is called Wealthfront. And that is something that I find to be very intuitive, it's very easy to use, and then I have it automated. So my money immediately gets invested every single week. It goes into these different accounts. I have a Roth IRA set up through there, and you can too. And if you want to check that out, I have a link in the description where you can get your first $500 managed for free. If you want to use Wealthfront, great. If you want to use someone else, totally cool. Doesn't matter to myself, but I believe that if you want a more peaceful path towards wealth, you do it by going in a way where you're having your broader structure of finances set up so that you're making sure you're taking care of all your bills, you're cutting back on your spending, you're not spending money on things that you don't need, you're not carrying a burden of debt, and then you're beginning to invest over time into an index fund. It's not a one and done sort of thing. I think that's a very important approach. You can invest large sums of money in big chunks and then keep doing that, but if you're expecting to just make one investment and then expecting it to go to the moon, most likely that's not going to occur. It might occur for certain people. You might see stories of this on Reddit. You might see stories out online about the person who becomes a millionaire overnight. And that's cool for those people, but the likelihood of that happening to you or myself is relatively low. So it's not to say that you couldn't conceivably try that at some point in time, but if that is your only investment strategy, that's not really a strategy, that is a risk. That's the equivalent of gambling. Whereas if you have a set amount of money going every single month or every single week into an investment such as an index fund, and you're just consistent with that, having money taken automatically out of your checking account and do it that way, it's a very effective tool, so you don't have to think about it. And I think this is the point that I really want to get to, because you've heard me talk about cutting spending, avoiding lifestyle inflation, avoiding debt, and investing in index funds before. But the bigger point that this brings is peace. And I believe peace is important for us to maintain in our lives because we are so stressed out already. We just went through a very stressful pandemic, a stressful election. We had an uprising of a big social conversation about what was happening around race in our country and causing all of us to think a lot about what's going on various sides of the issues. And I just want to tell you that I believe it's more important for us to have as much peace in our life. So if we're peaceful inside, we can be peaceful on the outside, and we can be more loving and caring and compassionate and empathetic towards others to be able to lift other people up. So if your financial house is in order, I can speak to this personally. The more I have my finances automated, the less debt I've carried in my life, the more peaceful I am. and then I'm more effective in my job. I can focus on the things that matter, like my relationship with my wife, and doing those things as opposed to being obsessed with what is happening most recently in the stock market, or what cryptocurrency is crashing, or what Elon Musk is tweeting. Those things are all interesting, but they're not something that's going to affect my overall well-being. And I'm concerned about a lot of people who might be having their overall livelihoods being impacted by this, either by losing money or just by the stress and anxiety of what is going on each day. So my encouragement to you is, if you want to have the peaceful path to wealth, just find a way to structure your finances in a manner where they're simple, they're automated, and you understand what is happening, and you have a long-term commitment to it. That will help you achieve your goal, and that is going to be the way you can do so in a manner that also allows you to live in the present, not just constantly being focused on the future or focused on the immediacy of what's happening in the news. You can have a more peaceful path, which hopefully brings you more value and joy to your life. With all that being said, I'd like to thank you for watching the video today. If you wouldn't mind, please tap the like button for the YouTube algorithm. Help push this video to other people who might need to hear it. Furthermore, if you have any questions, please comment down below. I'd love to interact with you, get to know you, do any research on your behalf so you can make well and wise informed decisions for yourself. Furthermore, if you wouldn't mind, please subscribe to the channel. That would mean a lot to myself personally, as I do everything I can to create positive content that has a positive impact in your life by encouraging you and myself to lead lives of meaning and purpose, all while maintaining balance and moderation. And if you do subscribe to the channel, please tap the notification bell. That will notify you every time I post a video, which I do on a weekly basis. Once again, I'd like to thank you for watching the video today. I hope you have a wonderful day. Talk to you next time.